Hello internet, Yulia speaking. Don't know why I always point, we're just gonna ignore that. We're also gonna ignore the fact that my hair is wet, because that's just the kind of day that it is. Today, I decided that in order to get to know me better and figure out what my tastes in books and movies and all of that and where that comes from, we're gonna talk about my childhood favorites. I've got a huge stack of books here that I absolutely loved as a kid, and some honorable mentions that, you know, I read and I enjoyed, but they just didn't quite make the list. First up, I'm going to mention two book series that I read as a kid, and I don't actually have the physical copies with me because I used to borrow a lot of books from the library, and, well, you know, I can't just take those and keep them and be like, here, they are. And the first one I want to say is A Series of Unfortunate Events. I think this one kind of is where I started off trying to collect all the books. Like this wasn't necessarily when the reader was born, but the collector, like obsessive collectors, definitely here, because this was the first series that I read that was like relatively long, because it's 13 books, and I just got so excited the fact that it was long that like I needed to continue reading even if like I was bored sometimes, which kind of did happen with A Series of Unfortunate Events, but that's kind of what made me grow into the sort of person that like hates not finishing books. Like I'm always continuing a series and getting to that last book even if I feel like it's dragging on. And then another series of books that I really liked and I don't have with me, and I think it's quite underappreciated because I've literally never seen it before, and I only just found it in my library, and then I remembered the name because I searched on Goodreads for ages and looking for dragon books because I had no idea what it was called. This series was called Dragon Keeper, and it's just about this girl that like, I honestly don't even remember it that well, but I remember that she like found this pet dragon, and it was actually quite scary at times, or maybe I'm just remembering it as scary because I was like 10 when I read it, no, maybe like 11 or 12, but I just remember that at some points it was just like, wow, this is feeling like it's meant for someone much older than me, and I was so proud that I like got through it. When I was only just starting to enjoy reading, I kind of moved towards Jacqueline Wilson's books straight away, and I don't really know if it was necessarily because I was really enjoying them, because I don't know, I don't really remember myself having like this great passion for them and like really loving the characters, but this is my pile of Jacqueline Wilson books. I'm pretty sure I had much more than that, but I don't know where they've sort of gone, so we're just gonna hover them here. But yeah, I don't remember really having like a big passion for them, but as you can see there are so many, and I also read a lot of them at the library because we had like a whole shelf in there and they were all like Jacqueline Wilson. And again, I think this was like the collector in me, because I remember having this huge poster on my wall. I think I found it in a magazine or something, and it had the full list of all the Jacqueline Wilson books, and I would just take each one that I've read, and I remember feeling so proud. And I distinctly remember that this dinosaur one, I didn't enjoy at all. Like I read it and it felt so childish already for me then, because it's probably meant for like 6-year-olds, and I read it when I was 12, and I remember that I was just not enjoying it, but I plowed through it so that I could put that tick on my wall. I think these three at the bottom I was starting to like more, the Hetty Feather series, but apart from that, I don't really think there were any that kind of stuck in mind. But I do still count Jacqueline Wilson as one of my favorites because she kind of opened the door for a lot of other books for me, because that was when it became like, well, I don't want to say an obsession because that makes it sound bad, but it's, you know, I got very excited after that. And Jacqueline Wilson was also what kind of led me to try and read a Cathy Cassidy book, which was this one, incidentally, Dizzy. And I distinctly remember reading it for the first time and getting like 10 pages in, and then I think a boy kissed a girl and I was like, whoa, this is not age appropriate, I'm gonna put this down because I don't like what's happening here and I don't think I should be reading this. And then like a year later or something, I picked it up again because it was still lying on that same spot on my shelf, and I remember that this was actually one of my favorite childhood books. I reread it so many times after that, and I don't really even know why it like stuck so much in my mind, but I feel like maybe this is because this was like the first proper romance that I read, and like looking at it now, the text feels very big, and like if I read it, the language is probably a bit childish, but like I'm pretty sure that I would still enjoy it nonetheless, but I don't know, maybe that's just because of the memories I've got attached to it at this point. And because I really loved that first book, then it also became an obsession of Cathy Cassidy books. And here they are. I feel like this one tops the other collection, and I definitely know that I love these so much more. I can basically remember the plotline of every single one, which is always a good sign when talking about your favorite childhood books. I think my favorites from these were with Dizzy, because that was the first one, and Lucky Star, because that kind of continues the story but with different characters, and then all the others are kind of separate stories that don't really tie together. And then these two are part of a series that she released later on that I also read. I feel like there were meant to be more, but maybe I never got to them or she didn't release them. I'm not really sure about that, but these I definitely really love. After that, I kind of started to get into adventure more, and I actually remember getting a recommendation from my friend to read the Percy Jackson series, and I don't actually have my like books with me because I read them at the library, and I really remember borrowing the book after my friend read it because she recommended it, so I don't have them with me. But what I do have is these French copies, because I was so obsessed that when we went on a French trip and we went into a bookshop, I just bought the whole series in French, and I decided like I'm gonna practice, and this was what, like 4 years now? And I still haven't read them in French, and I don't know, like they're just sitting on my shelf here. I should probably get to that at some point. But nonetheless, I do really love the series, and this one I think is really great for any age because it's just an adventure and it's so much fun, and it's about this guy, Percy Jackson, who finds out that he's a demigod and like goes on all these quests and adventures, and there's so much. Oh my god, I love them so much. And Rick Riordan wrote a whole bunch of other books, of which I'm pretty sure, yeah, I've read all of them except for the new Magnus Chase ones, but I will be getting to those ones at some point. Maybe I'll do reviews, but I don't know, we'll see, because it's been a while since I've reread these ones. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to the beginnings of my love for paranormal and all things fantasy. I got a bit obsessed, well, a bit, with my sister the vampire. There's a whole bunch of them, and I don't know how to hold them for you here. For some reason, I don't have the first 3 books, and I have a double of book 9. Don't really know how that happened, but I get the feeling that I started reading them at the library and then I liked them so much that I wanted to buy them, but since I already read the first 3, I was like, I don't want to buy those. So yeah, I've just got this collection of books 4 to 12 with double 9 in there. I don't know how that happened, but it's basically about these 2 twins, and one of them is a vampire and one of them isn't, and they just accidentally find each other, and it turned out that their dad was a vampire and their mom was a human, and situations happened where they had to be separated, and it's like the long lost twin story except with the vampire twist, and it's so funny, and I really remember loving them, and I would definitely recommend them. Those vampire beginnings kind of lead me onto this next one, which is Twilight. And again, I have this whole stack of random books because this is my childhood home and I don't exactly live here all the time anymore, so it's a little bit of a mess. Twilight was a big one for me. I started reading it probably around when I was 13, and I wouldn't actually call this a kid's book because, like, I don't think it is. I would put it in like teen or YA, but I just sort of started reading it early. I really remember really loving it the first time I read it, and then I think that happened over the summer, and actually there's a story behind why I've got this random one that's just here, which cover I really hate, and it's just lying here because I read the first 2 books online where I found them, and then I couldn't find the third one, and we were on holiday abroad. We were in Bulgaria, so, you know, all the books weren't exactly in English, and this was the only copy of Eclipse that I could find that was in English. And then for Breaking Dawn, I found it online again. But I'm just kind of really annoyed that, like, I've got this one book that doesn't really belong anywhere because I've rebought Eclipse and my nice covers afterwards. I got all of these really nice white covers. They're very pretty, and most of them have red pages. Breaking Dawn doesn't for some reason. And basically my whole collection of them is actually not at this house anymore, and I keep forgetting to bring this one there. I've just got 3 books in one place and 1 here, and it's just kind of been living here. And then I've got same situation as with the Percy Jacksons. I've got this really nice French collection of them, and they've got the same really nice white covers, and they're much smaller. I don't know if this is the UK one or the American one, but either way, like, the French ones are like mini versions. It's very cute, but I haven't read them, you know. I'm pretty sure I also have a Russian version. Yeah, so I've also got this Russian version, which I think my mom was reading because there's this bookmark in here. And I will probably read the Russian one before I read the French one, but this is not exactly pretty either. And I don't know why I only have the second one. Like, why do I have all of them in French, the second one in Russian, the third one in a cover that I really don't like, and then the 4th one is the only one that I actually really like that's here? I don't know, but point is, you can tell by this whole collection I've got going on, and 3 more books in another house, that this is a bit of an obsession and a love, and yeah. The Russian one fell because it just didn't want to be hugged. And then I also want to talk about the first series that really touched me, I guess, because the Jacqueline Wilson and the Cathy Cassidy ones, like, I really enjoyed those and they were fun, but I don't think they were really feels kind of books. And then Percy Jackson and Unfortunate Events and Dragon Keeper, like, those led into fantasy and adventure, and I really loved those as well. And there were some really touching moments in Percy Jackson, don't get me wrong, I loved those, and I did cry at them sometimes, but I feel like the first book where I really was, like, so immersed that I was sobbing by the end was Northern Lights. And this is a series called His Dark Materials, and the ending of that 3rd book, it hit me so hard. I think this was the first time that I was just sobbing my eyes out with a book, and, like, I knew I was hooked from that moment. This is about, I honestly can't remember properly, which is really sad for a lot of these books. I haven't reread them in so long that I can't really remember the plot anymore, but there's something about this girl called Lyra that finds this golden compass that only she can control. I think it could give you the answers to anything, and then there was something about dust and lots of stuff about parallel worlds, and the people in her world all have this, like, animal version of their soul, kind of, called a demon, and it is so well done. Like, the world was so well built, and I haven't ever reread this, and I don't really think I want to, because I think it wouldn't have the same impact if I reread it, and I really want to keep the memory of me, like, going through it as a kid, and, like, just all the feels. That's it for all of my childhood books and, like, my childhood favorites and what I really love. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed it. End of rant, I guess.